Abby Lee Miller spent years screaming at children on national television and called it love. But in May 2017, a federal judge sentenced her to prison. And suddenly, the woman who judged everyone faced her own verdict. There were whispers about hidden money, rumors of cash stuffed into bags, and accusations that shocked even her closest supporters. What really happened in those 8 months behind bars? And why do some fans believe prison destroyed her body, while others say she deserved far worse? The real story goes deeper than anyone expected. Abby Lee Miller entered the world on September 21, 1965, in Pittsburgh, and everything around her already pointed toward dance. Her mother, Marion Lorraine Miller, had opened her first studio in Miami at 18 and eventually ran 7 of them before marrying George L. Miller and moving north. She arrived in Pittsburgh with decades of teaching behind her and the kind of reputation that made people whisper her name with respect. When Abby was born, the new studio in Penn Hills was already humming with music, and Marion poured every bit of her hard-earned knowledge into her daughter. Abby grew up hearing stories about her mother training students for half a century, and the studio became her playground long before she understood what competition meant. Every sound in that place became part of her childhood, and every lesson her mother taught settled into her bones, as if she had been built for this life from the start. She grew up comfortably in Penn Hills, and the security around her shaped the freedom she had to chase dance without hesitation. Her father worked as a yardmaster for the Monongahela Connecting Railroad, part of the massive J&L steel operation that kept Pittsburgh alive from 1852 to 1968. Every day, he oversaw anywhere from 10 to 22 molten iron transfers across the hot metal bridge, a job that paid well and kept the family stable. Their home was large, and money never stopped Abby from taking extra classes or traveling for competitions. Her mother's studio brought in steady work too, so Abby never saw the kind of financial pressure other dancers faced. Instead, she walked into the studio each day knowing she had the space and support to get better, and that comfort allowed her ambition to grow sharper with every year that passed. She started dancing at 2, learning directly under her mother's strict guidance. Marion taught ballet, tap, jazz, and modern, and Abby learned to master each one as if the choices were already made for her. They traveled to competitions and conventions, and Abby watched her mother run class after class with polished precision. It shaped her in ways other dancers rarely experienced, because she never had another teacher. Everything she absorbed came from Marion alone. The discipline, the high standards, the expectations, the belief that technique mattered more than comfort. Abby carried all of that in her training, and because her world was built around one voice, she grew to see dance the same way her mother did. Her entire foundation came from this single, intense relationship, and it prepared her for the authority she would later claim as her own. By 14, she was no longer just a student. She built the Abby Lee Dance Company inside her mother's studio in 1980, gathering 15 dancers who would follow her direction. The company felt like a chance to test herself, and she quickly discovered how much she enjoyed having control over routines, formations, and who got to stand in the spotlight. That same year, she opened her own studio, something almost unthinkable for a teenager, but her mother backed her. Students kept joining, and over time she taught between 3,000 and 4,000 young dancers. Every decision she made deepened her sense of authority. The feeling of being the one who decided who performed and who sat out became familiar to her, and that early power shaped the teacher she would become later in life. While her mother was known for grace and generosity, Abby leaned toward a tougher style. She believed tears meant growth, and that emotional pressure prepared dancers for real auditions. She repeated the idea so often that it became the rule she lived by. She once admitted she would rather make her students cry privately with her than have them fall apart in front of strangers. This thinking pushed her far beyond her mother's gentle approach. Even though Marion was remembered as kind, Abby hardened the same philosophy until it resembled something closer to emotional force. She justified harshness by calling it love, and she turned pressure into a teaching strategy that would one day earn her fame and controversy at the same time. By 21, she was officially certified by Dance Masters of America in 1986, joining Chapter 10 in Pennsylvania. This membership gave her professional credibility and made parents trust her with their children's training. For years, the certification strengthened her standing, though the same organization later removed her name from their roster in 2012, claiming dance moms misrepresented dance educators. At the time she earned her certification, none of that was imaginable. She was young, ambitious, and determined to build a name for herself apart from her mother. And being accepted into DMA felt like proof that she belonged in the world she had grown up in. In 1995, everything shifted when her mother retired. Abby took over the entire operation and rebranded it as Rain Dance Productions. The word captured her desire to dominate the competitive circuit. She wanted to rule the world of dance the way she had always imagined, and the name made that intention clear. The studio still trained local students, but now it also housed the Abby Lee Dance Company at full strength. She stepped out from her mother's shadow and built her own identity as a leader who would not be overlooked. For the next 15 years, she poured herself into competitions. Las Vegas trips, national titles, and thousands of students shaped her reputation. She watched 12 of them end up on Broadway. She formed a lasting connection with John Corella, a respected dancer who later played a pivotal role in shaping her television career. She didn't know that their friendship would become part of the reason her name would spread far beyond the dance world. This period was the grind that few people saw, the years before the cameras arrived, when she pushed herself and her dancers with unrelenting focus. Then a strange and deeply personal moment caught public attention. In January 2014, Abby posted a photo with actor Michael Padula and captioned it with words that looked like an engagement announcement. Fans believed it instantly. More than 34,000 people liked the post, and media outlets ran with the story. She even talked about it in an interview a few months later, keeping the illusion alive. But shortly after her mother died on February 8, 2014, she finally revealed the truth. She had invented the relationship to comfort her mother, hoping it would ease her pain near the end. The revelation came with another twist. Padula was openly active in the gay community, which confirmed the pair had never been romantically involved. Abby admitted she didn't even have a ring. The fake engagement was never about romance. It was about giving her mother peace. Despite a life surrounded by kids, Abby never married and never had children. She remained single and poured every emotional need into her studio and her dancers. Those young performers became her family, and losing them felt like losing pieces of her life. The absence of a personal family often made her attachment to her students intense, sometimes unhealthily so. Cast members later spoke about the pressure and control they felt, and looking back, it makes sense. Her dancers filled a space she never created elsewhere, and the studio became her substitute for a traditional home. After years of competitions, Abby often stayed with John Corella during summers, sharing stories about her studio drama. She didn't realize that every heated tale and every conflict with mothers became inspiration for a show. Meanwhile, she was drowning financially with more than $350,000 in debt and filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in December 2010. She had no idea that Corella was quietly shaping a concept that could change her entire future. In September 2010, Corella and casting agent Brian Stinson brought the idea to Jeff Collins of Collins Avenue Productions. Lifetime had asked for a show with explosive drama, something close to Bridezilla's but focused on mothers and daughters. They pitched it as Real Housewives mixed with toddlers and tiaras, and the network wanted it immediately. Within 7 months, cameras rolled in April 2011. The show was originally called Just Dance. Casting became its own story. Abby insisted only parents were interviewed, but Christy Lukasiak contradicted her, saying the children auditioned too and even kept Chloe's audition tapes. Families recorded dance footage on their phones, and Kathy Nesbitt Stein became the first official hire. Producers were drawn to the studio's unique observation deck, which later became an iconic filming spot. Corella's personal choices shaped the cast. He selected 5 dancers first: Paige, Maddie, Chloe, Mackenzie, and Nia. Brooke was almost excluded for being 13, but once Paige was chosen, producers added her. Melissa Ziegler pushed for both of her daughters and succeeded. She also convinced producers to hire Gianna Martello, making sure Abby had her assistant for competitions. The cast expected only 6 episodes. Instead, the show exploded. Dance Moms premiered on July 13, 2011, to more than 10,000 viewers, and by the finale on October 5th, numbers rose to 1,800,000 dollars. The controversy only pulled in more attention. People were shocked to see toddlers performing under extreme pressure. Critics accused the show of public emotional abuse, and yet viewership grew by 71% among adults aged 18 to 49 by Season 2. The series stretched into 8 seasons and 235 episodes, ending on September 10, 2019. Early episodes revealed Abby's intense favoritism toward Maddie Ziegler. She gave her the best roles, most solos, and constant praise. Chloe, who was equally talented, took the emotional impact the hardest. Years later in 2024, Chloe admitted she grew up believing she wasn't enough because of Abby's comparisons. The rivalry became one of the show's defining tensions and cemented Abby's reputation as a teacher who divided her team for drama and results. During this rise, Abby's finances grew too, but she hid more than $755,000 from the bankruptcy court between 2012 and 2013. She created secret accounts, redirected payments through her mother, and concealed earnings from Dance Moms, her masterclasses, and merchandise. Each count of fraud carried a $250,000 penalty. She even asked producers to send $51,800 to Marion to avoid detection. In August 2014, she traveled to Australia for masterclasses and smuggled between $120,000 and $150,000 in cash back into the United States. She placed the money into Ziploc bags and distributed them among friends so no single person carried more than $10,000. Investigators later found texts where she literally asked for money laundering help. Paige Hyland was only 13 on October 9, 2014, when she walked into a Pennsylvania courtroom and accused Abby Lee Miller of years of harm that had followed her from rehearsal rooms into her own mind. The lawsuit painted a picture that felt heavy even to read. It described a moment when Abby threw a chair at Paige while her mother Kelly was not there, and Paige ran because she truly thought she would be hurt. It explained how Abby pinched students until they bled, and spoke to Paige in ways that tore into her confidence day after day. Those words stayed with her, while the constant insults and accusations followed her home. The complaint said Paige suffered panic attacks and deep fear because every rehearsal felt unpredictable. Her attorneys wrote that Abby had once been warm and kind before the cameras arrived, and that everything changed when the show needed drama. The idea that someone she once trusted could shift so sharply shook Paige in a way she would feel for years. That pain stretched into Kelly Hyland's own legal battle after the fight in November 2013 at Lehman College. Cameras caught the argument that spiraled out of control, and when Kelly believed Abby was trying to bite her face, she reacted without thinking. The chaos ended with Abby calling the police and Kelly being arrested. By January 2014, she stood in court saying she was not guilty, holding on to the belief that she had only tried to protect her daughters. Soon after, she and both girls were removed from Dance Moms entirely, which only deepened the divide. Kelly filed a $5,000 lawsuit, claiming the show had twisted reality and crossed too many lines. She told a reporter she was simply standing up for her kids, and her lawyer insisted producers had stirred the fire until someone snapped. The aftermath left the family drifting away from everything they had known on the show. That environment showed its darker edges long before those fights. In Season 2, when the girls were only 8, Abby pushed a routine called Electricity, with flesh-colored costumes that looked like something from a burlesque stage. The episode aired on March 6, 2012, and viewers reacted instantly. The girls had been told to dance in a way that echoed adult performers, while mothers whispered their discomfort behind the scenes. Paige later told her own mother she felt uncomfortable the entire time, yet the performance went forward because Abby insisted it was fine. The outrage grew big enough that Lifetime removed the episode entirely. Even years later, Abby scolded older dancers for wearing outfits far less revealing, forgetting she had directed a routine that made children look nearly nude to a national audience. More troubling stories emerged with time. One came from former dancer Reagan, who appeared online with her mother and explained that Abby had given 10-year-old dancers thongs and G-strings as Christmas gifts. People tried to defend Abby by saying dancers often wore such pieces under costumes. Yet the idea of gifting them to children felt wrong the moment it was spoken aloud. The story spread quickly, adding to a growing pattern that suggested boundaries around the girls had been ignored for entertainment's sake. Families who once stayed silent began remembering other moments that had made them uneasy. Financial strain added another layer to the Hyland story. During filming at their home, production damaged the flooring so badly that repairs cost more than $21,000. Kelly expected the studio to cover it since they had caused it, but no payment ever came. Her lawsuit also mentioned babysitting allowances and other costs the production had promised, but never delivered. Everything pointed to a system that used families until it no longer needed them, and then left them holding bills that should never have been theirs. As years passed, more examples of the harm rose to the surface. One of the most heartbreaking moments came at Season 4 Nationals in 2014, when Abby mocked Chloe Lukasiak's eye. Chloe was undergoing tests for a condition no one understood yet. She had drawn 13 vials of blood earlier that day, and then still went on stage. Her mother, Christy, had spent months terrified that something far worse was happening to her daughter. When Abby hurled cruel comments about Chloe's eye in the middle of an argument, Christy broke down because she had been holding fear inside for so long. Shortly after, they left the show. Yet producers later shaped the story as if Christy had overreacted, even though they knew exactly what Chloe had endured in private. Another painful memory came from Season 4, Episode 22, when 11-year-old Maddie Ziegler was told she had to kiss Gino on stage. She said clearly that she did not want her first kiss to happen in front of cameras. She said it felt horrible and embarrassing. Abby pushed her anyway. She even demonstrated by kissing Maddie herself, which left the studio unsettled for days. Maddie later said it was not how she imagined her first kiss and that it felt awkward and wrong. Yet the performance went forward because the show needed a moment people would talk about. That pressure returned in Season 2 when the girls performed a showgirl routine while wearing costumes designed to look almost nude. The girls moved across the stage pretending to cover themselves with feathers, while Abby shouted rehearsal lines that sounded like something meant for adults. That episode drew 2.7 million viewers, the highest rating at the time. Soon after, it was banned from reruns. Child safety experts said it had crossed every line possible. Even Paige admitted at home that she did not want to dance that way, but the show had already set the tone. Body shaming became another unshakable pattern. Dancers remembered Abby commenting on feet, thighs, legs, anything she could point to. She called Lily's feet fat. She told another dancer no one wanted to see her thighs. She mocked someone by saying she weighed only 20 pounds, yet couldn't jump higher. She said openly that she liked pretty girls and knew how to hide flaws. Kendall remembered joining the show at 10 and suddenly being judged by strangers online who called her too skinny, too tall, or even anorexic. These comments did not fade with time. They settled into the girls' thoughts at an age when they were still learning who they were. Nia Sue shared one of the most shocking experiences in her 2025 memoir, Bottom of the Pyramid. She wrote that Abby offered singer Aubrey O'Day $10,000 not to work with her. Nia overheard the conversation and broke down crying because she realized someone she knew so well was trying to block her career. The footage aired on the show, but crucial parts were edited out to protect the production. Nia wrote that the network hid what really happened because it could have put the entire series in trouble. Thankfully, Aubrey ignored the bribe and helped Nia move forward with music that later shaped her young career. While these stories were still unfolding, another storm was building behind the scenes. On October 13, 2015, federal prosecutors announced 20 criminal counts against Abby Lee Miller. They said she had lied in her Chapter 11 bankruptcy by hiding income from the show, from masterclasses, and from merchandise sales. The judge who first noticed her suspicious finances had simply been channel surfing in December 2012 and recognized that something did not add up when someone claiming $8,899 a month appeared on a hit series. If convicted on all counts, Abby faced as much as $5,000 in fines and 5 years in federal prison. Investigators later uncovered the full scale of the scheme. They found more than $755,000 hidden in various accounts. They found $228,000 from Dance Moms and the spin-off show. They found nearly $550,000 from personal appearances, classes, and merchandise. They learned she told the production company to send $51,800 to her mother instead of to her, hoping the payments would stay invisible. Everything pointed to a long effort to hide money from the court, and each detail made the case harder for her to escape. Abby pleaded not guilty at first. On November 2, 2015, she walked into a Pittsburgh courtroom, posted a $10,000 bond, and said she wanted a jury trial. Then she began asking for delays. She requested extensions 5 different times, hoping the case might weaken with time. But prosecutors kept building. They found texts where she talked about laundering money. They found documentation that tied everything together. Each delay only brought her closer to a decision she could no longer avoid. By June 27, 2016, she agreed to a plea deal. The original 20 charges fell to 2. One covered the hidden assets in bankruptcy. The other involved smuggling between $120,000 and $150,000 in Australian cash into the United States in small bags tucked inside luggage to avoid the requirement to declare more than $10,000. In her statement, she said she wanted to take responsibility and move forward. Prosecutors asked for 24 to 30 months in prison. Her attorneys pushed for 6 months or probation. Sentencing was set for October 11, 2016, and she now had to wait for a decision. that could reshape her life. On May 9, 2017, everything finally caught up with Abby Lee Miller. After a tense two-day hearing in a Pittsburgh courtroom, a federal judge sentenced her to 1 year and 1 day in prison. The charges were serious and specific. Prosecutors proved she hid $775,000 in income during her 2010 bankruptcy and secretly brought $120,000 in Australian currency into the United States without reporting it. Along with prison time, she was ordered to pay a $40,000 fine, forfeit the $120,000, submit a DNA sample because of the felony conviction, and remain under supervised release for 2 years after prison. Prosecutors pushed for a much longer sentence, calling her transformation a fall from dance teacher to con artist, while her lawyers begged for probation, arguing every creditor had eventually been paid. The judge landed in the middle, allowing her the chance to move to a halfway house after 10 months and giving her 45 days to report. When she left the courthouse that day, she smiled and told reporters to live and learn, even as her world quietly collapsed. Exactly 45 days later, on July 12, 2017, she reported to the Federal Correctional Complex in Victorville, California, a remote prison sitting in the high desert. Before walking through those gates, she filmed a final interview for Lifetime, where she admitted she was terrified. She spoke openly about her fear of violence and said that if people wanted to hurt you, they would. Inside Victorville, she prepared to serve what was supposed to be 1 year and 1 day, even though it quickly became clear it would be shorter. In public, she tried to sound hopeful. In private, the fear never really left. She had told her family she was strong enough for this, but prison had a way of stripping that confidence down fast. Once inside, her health began to unravel. She later claimed she was taken off all her medication without warning, including prescriptions for thyroid disease and diabetes. According to her, this happened suddenly with no medical supervision at all. Years later, she would say that moment changed everything. She believed the shock to her system damaged her body in ways she could never reverse. There was one strange twist. Without her diabetes medication, she lost nearly 100 pounds during her 8 months behind bars and no longer needed the drug. Even so, she insists the overall neglect destroyed her spine and nervous system. She would later say, "Prison is the reason she ended up in a wheelchair," a statement that still fuels controversy. By March 27, 2018, her condition had worsened enough that officials transferred her out early. After just 8 months, she was released from Victorville and sent to a halfway house in Long Beach, California. Her original release date had been June 21, 2018, but doctors had discovered something was seriously wrong. What should have been a slow transition back into society turned into a medical emergency. Within days, she was dealing with unbearable neck pain and weakness in her arms. She went from doctor to doctor, at least 6 in total, and each one sent her home. The pain kept growing. Then, during a scan in April 2018, her arms and legs began moving uncontrollably. By that Friday night, she could not move. By Sunday, she was completely paralyzed. In the early hours of April 17, 2018, surgeons rushed her into emergency spinal surgery. Doctors first believed they were treating a deadly spinal infection. What they found was worse. A massive tumor was crushing her spinal cord. The diagnosis came the next day: Burkitt lymphoma, a rare and extremely aggressive cancer with only about 1-200 cases diagnosed each year in the United States. The surgery saved her life, but left lasting damage. Within days, she was transferred on a gurney to a rehabilitation hospital, unable to walk, unable to stand, forced to relearn everything from the ground up. Treatment was brutal and relentless. From April 2018 through May 2019, she endured 10 rounds of chemotherapy. Each round lasted 6 days. Chemotherapy flowed through her body non-stop in 24-hour cycles. After every round, she endured spinal taps and injections directly into her spine and tailbone so the drugs could reach her brain. The cancer responded, but the cost was enormous. Her bones became brittle. Her strength disappeared. Rehabilitation meant learning how to sit up, crawl, and balance again. Still, she clung to the hope that one day she might walk. On May 27, 2019, she finally shared good news. The cancer was gone. Doctors confirmed she was cancer-free. The relief was real. But so was the reality. The damage to her spine left her dependent on a motorized wheelchair. Months later, in September 2019, she took a few public steps using a walker. It was emotional and exhausting. In November 2020, she underwent another 7-hour spine surgery in hopes of easing pain and regaining mobility. Surgeons warned the procedure was risky because chemotherapy had weakened her bones so severely. She continues physical therapy to this day, still chasing the idea that one small miracle could change everything. Then, another blow landed. On June 5, 2020, Lifetime cut ties with her entirely. Former cast members accused her of racist behavior, describing comments that left lasting scars. The network canceled her upcoming projects and made it clear she would not return. Her apology followed quickly, but it was rejected by those who felt the damage had already been done. For the first time, her public downfall had nothing to do with courts or hospitals. It was about accountability. In 2024, she reignited the controversy by blaming prison for her paralysis. She claimed doctors ignored her symptoms, dismissed her pain, and mishandled her medications. She said those delays allowed the tumor to grow unchecked. Her surgeon later confirmed that her complaints should have been taken seriously much earlier. To her, the conclusion was simple. That is why she believes she is in a wheelchair today. By May 2024, Lifetime aired a Dance Moms reunion without her. Former dancers described their shared experience as a trauma bond. They admitted they could not have spoken freely if she had been present. One by one, they explained how fear and pressure shaped their childhoods. Maddie Ziegler had already made her stance clear years earlier, saying she left because the environment was toxic and she no longer wanted to live with constant stress. Abby's response was sharp. She claimed the dancers lacked talent and dismissed the emotional impact of her words, doubling down instead of stepping back. Only one former student remained publicly loyal. JoJo Siwa continued defending her, insisting success came from loyalty, not criticism. That divide revealed how differently people process the same experience. While most walked away, one stayed close, keeping Abby connected to a past that many others wanted to forget. Even in late 2025, her name refused to fade. A viral death hoax spread across social media, fooling thousands before being debunked. Weeks later, she was back in headlines again after filing a $1.5 million medical malpractice lawsuit, claiming a catheter had been left inside her body during surgery and ignored for years. She says the pain followed her every day until emergency surgery finally removed it in 2024.